Alrighty, so now that we're on our beginning screen of Blender, we can go ahead and select everything and do them dirty in front of this squad. Just select all and delete. Alright, next thing you want to do is grab whatever kind of rig shenanigans you have that's already animated, or you want to animate them now and import them into your project. Cool beans, so now that we're done importing our characters, we can go ahead and start setting up our scene. I would recommend a minimalist approach to your environment design as to not take any attention away from your main characters, but do whatever you want. I'm not your mom. Now, one more note is that for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and use the Eevee render engine. Now, normally I'd rather be drone striked at a Yemen wedding than have to participate in using this awfully just shitty render engine, but it'll give us that nice cartoony feel that you want if you want to animate something in the style of Spiderverse. Go ahead and quickly add any form of sun basic lighting that you want in your scene. Now, in order to make this absolute dog shit engine work even remotely well, we're going to have to tick off a few things. Under no circumstance, tick off the motion blur if you're going to render something in the style of Spiderverse, because it will not come out well and you might as well be forfeiting your kneecaps. I will find you. Now, we're also going to go ahead and ignore the simplified tick, treat it as if it's a Republican at Costco, because you know for a fact it has COVID, so stay away from that. Go ahead and tick the box of freestyle. This is probably the most important element of this whole process. Treat this as if it's a Dick Cheney to our Iraq war. Go ahead and adjust the lighting to however you want, and then we'll go ahead with the physical environment. Great environment, Sweaty. So now we're going to go ahead and add an HDRI for additional lighting purposes. Now, if you don't know how to load in HDRI on your own, you probably haven't busted your Blender donut cherry yet, so I recommend finding a YouTuber like Blender Guru for a much more in-depth tutorial on HDRIs and lighting, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to basically load in an image. Now, if you think that you should click on image texture to load in your environment, you'd obviously haven't reached the Stone Age yet. What you want to do is you want to hit environment texture, and then you want to find whatever HDRI image you want to use. If you want good free HDRI images, look up HDRI Haven. Believe it or not, it's the haven of HDRIs. Very muy bueno image you picked out. So the image that I'm picking out is the Shanghai image. It has the repetition of the blue and purple lights, which is a common theme that we find in the Spider-Verse movie, so it's perfect for this render. In fact, this image is so beautiful that I deem it to be too heavenly for our eyes, so we'll take it out back by going to the Film tab and hitting Transparent. So now that we have gotten rid of our environment, we're going to have to find an image to replace it. Now, the quickest and easiest way to do this is through the add-on of Images as Plane, and I'm assuming that you should have that, because if you don't, you're technically an ape. But I'm going to go ahead and show you anyways. So you want to go to Preferences, search for Images as Plane, and then click it. Astounding. Press Shift A to bring up the quick select for inserting any mesh or anything at all. Go down to Image and click Images as Planes. I'm so proud of you. So now that we have our image pulled up, whichever one you preferred, you can put it into place as if it's your background. Great work, champ. Now I'm sure that you're not the reason your parents separated. Anyways, now we're going to get on to the animation process, the real meat of this. Now you might be saying to me, but sir, please, how do we get an animation? Well, first of all, it's not my problem. Second of all, I'ma tell you anyways. Also, it'd mean a lot to me if you started calling me Dad. So there's a website that's run out of a small little startup company based out of California called Adobe. It's called Mixamo, and it is a pretty amazing website that'll allow you to put in any kind of mesh that even closely resembles a humanoid figure or an already rigged mesh, and you can choose from an assortment of motion capture animations that are already baked animations, so just plug those puppies in, or you can just put in any animation yourself. As a warning, sometimes the armatures will glitch whenever you import them, but it's a relatively easy fix. You just kind of manually adjust it. This is the part where the magic actually happens. So now that we have our animation pretty standard set out, we have to Spiderverse-ify it, if that's even a word. So the most iconic part of the Spiderverse was the fact that every character almost looked like they were stop motion. So the way we get that effect is actually by deleting every other keyframe. So to do that, we have to first bake the animation. That is fairly easy. You just go up to pose with all bones selected, and you go down to animation and press bake animation. Pretty easy. Do not forget, it's a very important step to make each frame step 2. If you notice now, jack ship got done. The reason this is because there is an interpolation, specifically a linear interpolation between each keyframe. Basically what this means in not virgin terms is that in between each manual keyframe, Blender automatically comes up with where that keyframe would be. Meaning that if I have one frame here and the other frame here, right in between, this does not actually exist. This keyframe was made up by Blender. We don't want that. So what you do is you press T and it brings up this nice little menu here, and you want to press constant. However, it would actually be more useful if I showed you through the graph editor so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So each yellow dot on this graph is a keyframe that we have baked into this, and as you can see, there is a line in between each one. This line, however, is completely made up by the actual program itself. That's why you can see curves, and you can see how it uniquely morphs depending on where the keyframe is. But we don't want that. We only want the inputs that we put in. So to do this, we're going to select everything, press T, and press constant. So now you can see that the graph only changes when we actually tell it to. So it will stay in a constant motion until we put down a keyframe telling it what to do. And boom, bam, Bob's your uncle, and what do you know, we have a Spiderverse animation. And now I'm going to make the final adjustments of Venom's animations and position them correctly, and then we'll render. it's time to animate the camera. Keep in mind that Spiderverse has a very dynamic camera that typically follows the protagonist in the fight, so get used to sharp, rigid movements from the camera. So remember our Dick Cheney from before, the freestyle tool? Well, now before I'm going to render this animation, I'm going to show you just how powerful that actually is. So this one here is the render without freestyle, and as you can see, it's exactly the same as we see it when we're just looking at our default render view. However, if we add freestyle, you can see that there are outlines added to everything, and this is absolutely crucial if you want to have anything even remotely similar to the Spiderverse without actually hand animating all of it yourself. So this tool is incredibly useful. So enough with all that boring stuff, let's actually render the thing. Now that we're done, let's take a look at how the raw render looks. We're not quite finished yet, and you might be thinking to yourself, but Papa, what else could we possibly add? Well, one of the most iconic things about the Spiderverse is whenever there is a large impact, the entire background would disappear and be replaced with a classic comic, pow, whack, one of those kind of things going on. And the only thing left in frame would be the foreground and the characters themselves. In order to do this, we are going to remove the background. Now you want to pick a new folder to render into and render. Alright, now that we've finished both renders, let's pop this bad boy into Premiere Pro. Now that we're in Premiere Pro, what you want to do is you want to take your two renders, place them both on the timeline, the one with the background above the one without. Next, you want to cut a hole in the top layer to fit the impact. Feel free to adjust this to your liking. Now you want to pick out any picture of your choice that would be a good impact background. When you find your perfect background, go ahead and place that directly under your nested sequence. Adjust this layer and animate it in any way you please. And there you have it, folks. A Kroger brand Spiderverse.